If it's Saturday, it must be time for There's a Will. Yes, we're recording in beautiful downtown Warsaw with a hint of spring. Is bringing a song to everyone's heart and a tune to whistle to their lips. And here to whistle for you in the studio is Nicholas Richardson.
No relation. No
relation, unfortunately. Still working on that, as you know. Anybody who's been following this program knows that we've had what are those people called who died? Genealogy sleuths.
Genealogist, yes.
The Sherlock Holmes of genealogy, working on that connection. We're almost there. We're almost there. Somewhere in the borderlands of England and Scotland, they will finally find the missing link, we call it.
Yes, yes.
Yep, the missing link. And we have joining us in the middle of a war. We're having fun. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is our favorite American correspondent this week. That is Anthony McFarland Gonzalez from a hotel room in the depths of, where are you in Washington?
Herndon, Virginia.
Oh, you're in Virginia. Okay, very good. We'll come back to you. Lots of things for you to tell us about your exciting trip there. And relevant to things Polish and this program. And we have from beautiful downtown Zambrów, that metropolis on the, what river is that on over there? There, Olgierd? Are you on a river?
Gotch.
What?
Gotch.
The Gotch. You're on the Gotch River. Is it a river or more like a stream?
More like a stream.
Or a brook, even. I brook no contradiction, as the wise man once said. And so Olgierd Uziembło, sinologist and also Chinese expert. He's both a doctor of the sinuses and a Chinese expert with us today. No, in all seriousness, we are going to talk about the Chinese-Russian meeting coming up in the second half, but I thought we would just get a few personal stories, what's been going on from people. We had a drama in real life, as the old Reader's Digest thing used to say, with Olgierd in Warsaw yesterday on the metro, and Anthony McFarland Gonzalez is attending a very special event, exciting event. Wish I were there. Nicholas probably does too once he realizes what it is. So I want you to tell us about that. And we'll start with Nicholas before we go there. Nicholas, what has been happening? You were recently on the other tube.
Yes.
You've been reading the news, of course, and things like that. You were on the other tube the other night. What were you talking about?
The updated version of the British Defence Review, the Integrated Defence Review, which came out in 2021, and they've published on Monday or Tuesday a revised version for 2023 to take into account recent events, namely the war in Ukraine, China and other things. But unfortunately, whenever you hear the words Defence Review and British government, you know in actual fact a lot of nice words but not much action. Although to be fair, in the Chancellor's budget on Wednesday he did promise extra £11 billion over 2 years for defence, but it's still woefully inadequate given the challenges we face and given the cuts which have occurred over the last decade or so, and indeed before that.
Well, before that, the shrinking Navy, the shrinking Army.
The peace dividend has been paid out umpteen times, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was quite interesting. It's always fun to pontificate.
Yeah, that was on the...
Yes. That was fine. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Evening Tonight or whatever. Evening Today. World Today.
World Today, I think.
World
Today program. Yes, that's 20.
Which both of us appear on from time to time.
We do from time to time. I think they can't find anybody else to appear.
Yeah, I know. It's very hard. They say if you give us 100 zlotys, you can appear. So.
Yeah, but they don't even.
It's expensive after a while paying for those appearances. Yeah.
Well, you probably have to pay. I don't.
Yeah. Oh, you don't have to pay?
No, I don't.
They told me you were paying.
No.
They used that as a ruse to get me on there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great Scott. You shouldn't have to pay to be on TV, right?
I don't.
Yeah. You don't?
No.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that anymore, now that I know. I'm going to play hard to get. Catch me if you can.
Exactly.
It's going to be my motto. So what comes out of this defense thing?
Well,
the new defense
I mean,
budget?
the original paper, not really much compared to the original paper. The original paper.
Is it a budget or a white paper?
Well, it's neither. It was a review in 2021 which sort of tried to take a sort of an overall view of the security of the nation, looking beyond
recommendations,
just beyond defence, but also taking into account technology security, our old friend climate change, etc., etc. Lots of nice words. I mean, actually quite sensible as a concept.
Yeah.
But of course, sensible words have to be backed up by sensible action. And you know, the cupboard in the UK, money-wise, seems to be a little bare. But yet, despite that, there's always billions and billions and billions for complete nonsense.
Well, we're living in very interesting times. There was always that saying. I remember like 20 years ago or even longer, that saying of the Chinese, may you live in interesting times. There's a Chinese curse. Good Lord. Who knew they'd take it literally and curse the whole world?
But it's all about security, energy security, industrial security, of course.
This paper, or this, whatever it is.
To take, the idea is you take the security of the nation, not just your forces, but other things which are important, like technology, like the climate, like having an industrial strategy.
But does Britain still think they need a navy?
Well, everybody thinks they need a navy, except the people at the Ministry of Defence, who seem to be serially incapable of doing it. But it's too easy to cut. That's a problem for politicians, because they think people don't notice defence, whereas they notice if you don't have hospitals or doctors.
They notice healthcare. Healthcare is always
well. Again, the UK
healthcare
system needs radical reform. No other country in the world has that system.
Yeah.
You know, it was hardly, if you actually find it interesting, when it was founded in 19... If you look in 1947, the Treasury in 1947, when it first started, within a year we're saying we can't afford this, it's not going to work.
Right.
And here we have been for 70-odd years, and we need radical change.
Well, no, the point is you can't talk about healthcare, you can't talk about defence without healthcare being the thing that everybody starts waving their
but we have a system which is very expensive and not as efficient as it should be. And if you look at the GDP spending on healthcare in the UK, it's not actually out of line with other countries, but other countries seem to get much better value for money. Well, I'm excluding America because you have a very different system.
I put 10 years in on healthcare in the UK. I've got nothing out of it.
Yeah,
but
it's not just that; it's just cumbersome and bureaucratic and sort of prescriptive of what people can and can't do, and it's very, very strange.
Anyway, so Britain has decided. Let's review. Britain has decided, yes, it does need a military.
Yes, but it is going to spend a bit more money.
They're going to spend a bit more money. Okay, let's go to the extraordinary happening yesterday on the metro in Warsaw. I think I'll lead with this in capital letters on this program. Okay. Scandal on Metro.
Scandal on Metro.
Yeah. Well,
tell us more.
You're coming to us from a cafe.
Well, yes, I was having a whole string of, unlucky events recently. As you know, I often travel on the weekends to see Zambrów in Podlasie region. And firstly, I had problems getting there yesterday, and today we woke up to no electricity because there was a very strong wind. We don't need any war to be bereaved of our electricity. They had to go downtown in order to get any kind of internet, because once the electricity is down for longer than an hour, the diesel machine that supports electricity to our internet provider gives out, and then internet is down for like 3 or 4 days because they have to reset the whole thing.
So you have to go to the cafe and be tempted by all the cakes that Weight Watchers...
That's pretty cruel because I cannot eat all those
Weight Watchers will not allow you to... I don't eat those kind of things either, and I love them. Yeah. I don't know. Anthony probably eats them one after the other in handfuls, no?
I so wish.
I do too. I
cannot even drink Coca-Cola, nothing.
Yeah, well, when you get over 29 years old, you can't eat those things anymore. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
That's the way it is. That's
anyway,
that's the hard truth.
Something really weird yesterday. They closed down 4 stations because apparently somebody was going into the tunnels and leaving something in them. So they were catching the person, and now, I don't know, there is no further reports. I was actually at the station when it was happening, so that was...
Where was the station? Which station?
That was the one that was once flooded. the one next to the river.
Is it Copernicus or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Copernicus Center.
Where the center is for the science center named after Copernicus. Yeah. Right, so this goes right under the river, so if somebody were going to do mischief, that would be a place to do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably that's why they were so panicked. They were running around. Apparently they finally caught the guy and they let everybody on. I don't know whether they were more panicked or there was some real thing behind it.
There's a lot of nutty people around these days. You don't know. Yeah. The pressure is ratcheted very high, and people are breaking on the edges, not only, but that's where you see the signs first. Anthony, you're in Washington, D.C., and it's early in the morning. What time is it? Like getting for 8 o'clock there?
Yeah, just 8:43. It's not that early.
No, if that's for you. What do you wake up 4 a.m., something like that? Every day?
5:30.
5:30? You and Mark Wahlberg get your and Arnold Schwarzenegger, he wakes up every day at 6, apparently. Starts
just
doing things, feeding his donkeys, apparently.
I was not aware that Schwarzenegger recently visited Poland.
What?
Oh, I did not know that either.
He did?
Yeah, he did.
Why?
Wasn't he like in Auschwitz?
How does he visit Poland and no one knows?
Or maybe I missed it, so it was a long time ago, I don't know. I just found out that he was in Auschwitz and there was some foundation.
There's a thing called Google. Uh-oh, we've lost him.
He's going to check.
We've lost him.
No, he's checking.
What the heck happened? I like this, though. It's a bit like a silent movie. Okay, Tony, we'll get him back. This is isn't it? It really is. The pantomime is exciting. Tony, tell us about your visit to Washington and the event that you're attending, and why.
Yeah, so far, the trip to Washington was incredible. Yep, so I've been hanging out with the Alliance for Innovations group that I've been helping out since they even got involved in the war. But they have been doing this for the reasons that the Ukrainian soldiers are needing prosthetics, and we're also talking with multiple agencies that they are dealing with to also expand that, not only for the soldiers, but for civilians, particularly kids, because organizations are not having the full capacity that they're supposed to have, and they can't really take care of these kids, and we need to be on the ground, and they're pushing them to actually do action, and that's good. So they're working with MS Voya in Poland to actually take these people in. Now, starting with
what's first, the organization that they're working with, Tony?
Alliance for Innovation, and they're working with MS Voya, the national healthcare system in Poland. Okay. So that's just here in country, but over here in the United States, they're working with Baylor College, they're working with Georgetown, they're working with the Veterans Affairs Office, they're also working with the Virginia Physicians Association, which is a massive organization which ties into a plethora of other hospitals all over the world and in the United States. So that's huge for these guys. And the culminating event of this is tonight, which is at the Air and Space Museum. And we're going to be treated with a very special show. This is a Chopin show. I met Krzysztof, who is the organizer and the coordinator / director of this. And the concept that they have is amazing. So they're going to be showing us and treating us to a show based on space and time. And I cannot wait to see it. The way that he showed me with the PowerPoint presentation of the show program is amazing. So that's tonight. But that's going to be helping raise donation funds for the program to keep going, so we can continue to give prosthetics to people that are giving in need. We have 43 people that are lined up right away, soldiers already, at a undisclosed military hospital in Ukraine, of which they are waiting for this. And then once we take care of these 43, whatever the funds we have left, if we have more, we can start taking care of 1,300 plus kids that are either maimed or severely wounded by the war. And maimed, I mean missing limbs, and...
Is this hospital, may I ask you, is this hospital somewhere in the west of Ukraine? Can you say that?
No, it's not in the west of Ukraine. It's
okay.
actually it's near one of the major cities,
okay.
And it's one of the major cities that's not under occupied control.
Okay.
And they are very secretive of this because it's an actual military hospital. Sam told me not to say anything.
Yeah, all of these locations are secret. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is a very, very good point that we have, and a very good, powerful message that we're sending tonight. And hopefully people will get on board with us, because this is something that we need. And it's one of the biggest things that they are talking about, because not only are we having to fix the infrastructure, they're also focusing on that. Now they're pulling in organizations from the U.S. to go over there once they have interest, and once this show kicks off, because it's completely sold out. All 350 tickets are sold. We have dignitaries from multiple countries coming, and we have massive CEO companies, or massive Fortune 500 company CEOs coming to this too. So hopefully we get a huge amount of traction here, so we can actually just use all this money to get these people the services that they need in order to continue their lives. So it's really, really good that I'm here with this, and an honor to be in it. Yeah,
it sounds fascinating, and not just the people that you'd be meeting there and what you're doing, but also just the event itself sounds very interesting. Of course, the space museum, what do you call it? Aeronautics in Space Museum.
Yeah,
is sensational. Is one of the sensational places in the world, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it is. And the hangar that we're in, they've already reorganized it to only have the space shuttle, which the band is playing right in front of the Space Shuttle Discovery. And they've organized it around to where they have everything that's space surrounding us. And they have projections in the back. Of course, we're used to projections here in Poland, but here in the United States, that they think that's absolutely some of the best and wildest thing, that they're showing video projections on the walls. Of course, they never thought of that, but it's really cool. Yeah. And the sound is just supposed to be engulfing us all around. So they have the pianist in the middle. They have the the string players, 2 on each side. And then I think they have a flutist. I think they have just 1 brass player, but needless to say, the sound's supposed to be engulfing us. So the 350 people are in front of us in a stadium position. And then the pianist, goodness sakes, the artist is supposed to be sort of engulfing around us, and it's really neat. I can't wait to see it. But yeah, Shishov, the director, says that it's going to be wild, and they've done this before, but not with the actual equipment that they have here. So he said the acoustic sounds in the hangar are going to be making it a little bit more interesting, as in the sound does carry a lot, especially in that hangar.
Would you send me a link to that so I can include this information in the show when I post it? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, send me a link that just explains all that. I think David Kaiser's with you, and he sent me something, but I don't know if it's everything.
No, it's
so that people can read about it. Yeah, and see exactly. Is it a Polish project? What this whole thing? Who's organized it? It
is. Yes, so the Alliance for Innovation is a Polish NGO that also has a headquarters here in the United States, and they are leading it. So yeah, from
Sorry, I had someone in my ear. I missed the name of the organization. Can you say it again?
Yeah, Alliance for Innovation.
Right. Okay.
So it is it is a Polish-led organization, so it's an NGO.
Yeah.
But the headquarters is here in the United States.
Right.
And the organizers of the project are located in Poland, but now they're here to attend the event.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? You're over there describing this amazing event about space and time, and as high tech as you can get in the Space and Aeronautics Museum setting of the Smithsonian. And I was reading an article this morning about the Ukrainian front. This is something Nicholas may have read as well, about Maxim guns being used, which were developed for the British in the Boer War. being used on the front and actually being, well, effective, because they're nothing but mowing machines for human beings. Extraordinary, that technology.
It is.
Along with the Thompson submachine gun, still is kind of unsurpassed for effectiveness, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. I was, don't they, where did they use those guns in, is it Zulu, where you see
No,
those
they didn't
guns?
have any Maxim guns.
They didn't have
They
them,
just had the rifles.
Yeah, they just had the repeating rifles, yeah. But they certainly used them in the trench warfare on the,
Oh, yes.
in Europe on the Western Front. And that's where we know them from the movies and all the rest of it. So from this, there's always some group, some individual, usually a dictator, trying to draw us back into the past that we're madly trying to escape from, you know?
Yes.
Or even reasonably.
That's a
I guess
problem.
we could say both. It's a mad scramble and a reasonable ascent from these debilitating bad habits of the past. The thing I want to talk about in the second half, of course, is Russia and China, because there's a big meeting coming up. I printed out a lot of stuff about this. We'll never get to it. It could start to be a long article. But I think in the second half, Olga, perhaps you will lead off with your take on this. Well, we might talk a bit about Russia-China relations over the last couple of centuries, anyway.
Well, frankly speaking, right now, what is happening is really fog of war. Everybody has a different opinion, and it's like nobody is talking to Xi from among the people that I know. And of course, I'm a lowly scientist in Poland, but I bet there is nobody talking to Xi, even among the best learned men of the West, and nobody can foresee what he's going to do.
What about, do you have contacts in China that would speak to you and tell you, even professorial contacts?
There are usually folk people who live in somewhere in the mountains, because I'm an anthropologist, and they are not, highly placed politicians. But those people I know, they have really different opinions, all of them. Some of them say, I'm always of the opinion that China seems to be the one poised to win the most out of this war. So it would be good to, well, it's reasonable to think. It's reasonable to think that China might have had a hand in somehow alluring Russia into this war.
Very interesting. Okay, we got to stop there.
That's
a good point of departure. We were talking a bit about this before. Very interesting to see what our security expert, Mr. McFarlane Gonzalez, will have to say. I call him Tony sometimes when he lets me. And what Nicholas will have to say with his NATO expertise, looking at it from that strategic point of view. All right, so hey, everybody, stay with us, please. Watch these exciting advertisements and buy all those products or whatever. Or buy them for your friends and family. And help us pay for this show. Thanks. Bye. See you. Oh, bye for now. Gosh, when I wrote that song, All Roads Lead to Poland, it was about the Euro Cup, when they were actually building remember the soccer, football thing, and championships, and they were in Ukraine and Poland, and they were building roads. That's why, and so it was kind of a funny song. Little did I realize that 8 million refugees would pass through Poland in the space of a few months.
Nobody did.
It's just crazy, isn't it? Yeah, but we always knew that Poland was a crossroads for many different things, from the time of the amber trade, and for conquerors, and
of course,
both from the east and the west. You have something there.
Yes, it's your book.
Finally,
signed it. I've had it for a long time, and
yeah,
I keep forgetting to bring it. So if you'd sign it, that'd be very nice.
Yeah,
when you have a moment.
I'd be very happy to sign it. This is my book. It's called Rome. I have a new book coming out. It's called Are You Talking to Me? It's a collection of interviews, and that will be freely available on Amazon very soon, even by next week. And this one, of course, is on Amazon. If you like a rollicking tale,
it's quite good, actually, yeah.
Quite good.
Quite
Don't
good.
damn me with faint praise.
I'm from Yorkshire. Quite good is about as good as it gets.
Is as good as it gets. Well, all right. Well, thanks. Good Lord, quite good. I didn't pay him enough, obviously.
No.
So, yeah, I would say it is quite good. That's all I can say since it's my book. But it's Rome, Confessions of a Cowboy Capitalist. And if you like the history, want to know the history of the last 40 years of the previous century, then, oh, I see, I already autographed it.
Oh, did you? I must have,
Yeah.
oh, I hadn't realized.
You didn't see it. It's hidden in here.
Oh, okay.
It says, for Cousin Nicky.
Ah, okay, so I must have brought it on a previous occasion.
Yeah.
It shows how my mind has gone.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Anyway, there we are.
But you gave me an opportunity to talk about my book, which
yes.
And that really was kind of you.
It was. Sorry, I really genuinely had forgotten you'd signed it before.
That's a pretty good book. The other book is, I mean, I think
when
it's
is part 2 coming
good.
out?
Part 2 is coming out in about 3 months.
Okay.
And my interview book, which is a collection of previously done interviews with top-notch artists, I suppose, in various fields across and athletes. Got Mike Tyson and Vladimir Klitschko in it, for example. A number of film directors and musicians. And
shows how badly organized I am.
An interview with the Stig.
The Stig.
The mysterious Stig, the racing driver from the television show. Yeah. What's it called?
Top Gear.
Top Gear.
Top Gear, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an interesting book. It's fun. It's got, you know, something for it's something for everybody. They were interviews done for a men's magazine, so there's something for everybody. Okay, let's move on to the topic. I want to start with the history of Russia-China relations. When we last left off, before that scintillating break, in which everybody rushed out and got a notepad to write down the products they need to buy, like we always do,
of course,
every time. Just before then, Olgierd Ujimbwa, anthropologist and sinologist and historian and a man who's fluent in many areas, was saying to us that the Ukraine-Russia war seems to have played right into the Chinese strategy. Would you care to elaborate, Olgierd, first?
Well, now we kind of have no move left, because if we want to choose, we want to play any of those giant countries against each other, we would have to use China against Russia, and then we strengthen China, and strengthening China is a mortal peril for the West, because China is actually decidedly now vying for the first place in the world, for the leading government and world government, and she wants to attempt to dislodge America from that place. And as I always say, it's like probably with Churchill and democracy, America is terrible, but if I want to have a world policeman, I prefer this to be America than to be China.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really good point that you make. It is the beginning salient point. There's another one I've thrown. Just to recap, that who would you rather be in charge? The dictator of dictators, or the capital of technology and the initiator of the United Nations and the League of Nations and all these attempts to create open markets throughout the world, the United States.
I love all the things that you mentioned, because now China is kind of leading the technology. The United Nations just proved to be completely useless.
Yeah, I know, but they were good. These are the initiatives. The United States creates the technology, and then China comes along and I don't really believe that China's leading. I think Japan is far more advanced, based on what I can read and what I hear experts say. It just seems to be the case, prima facie.
There is one aspect that China is really, really, really into. It's data mining and quantum computers. those are the most dangerous aspects probably of Chinese technology, that is, that they have really developed and that really works. As opposed to other things, they are trying to get the space technology right. But let's say, the Mars rover is still rolling around, whilst the Chinese lunar vehicle went dead after 2 weeks. So there is still a big discrepancy.
No, I'm not a believer. You're never convinced me that the Chinese, we need to, you know, or the North Koreans or the Chinese or any of these guys. We've got China surrounded. I say we, the West. I mean, it's not you and me, but the Western countries have China surrounded. Out there, we have a number of island group aircraft carriers, which are pretty efficient at choking off their navy, which is pretty much made of patrol boats anyway, and annoying. They're building their artificial islands. Why? Because they don't have real islands. They don't even have Taiwan. So everybody calm down about China. But what's interesting is China on the mainland versus Russia. And this seems to be a sticking point over time. Because after World War II, China and Russia supported the communism in China of Chairman Mao with material and advisors. And then they stayed pretty much in well, not lockstep, but in cooperation until the 60s, during the Cultural Revolution, where the Soviet Union, having had enough of that sort of thing under Stalin, said, no good, we don't want that. And things began to break down, and then they actually even were open to the Kissinger-Nixon advances, right?
Yes.
So, so things began to break down. It's never really been the same. I think China would rather enrich itself than be, than in any way sacrifice this, what they've gained materially.
Yes, but I think your point. Yeah. But you see, but China's concept, or Xi's concept of enriching itself, is actually essentially dominating everybody else. That's the point. It's not benign enrichment. It is enriching itself by, I mean, you know, we talk about...
How does that differ from what I was saying there? Or is it an adjunct?
Well, no, because you think they can be sort of nice people and making themselves...
I didn't say they were nice.
No, but...
I wasn't even trying to infer that.
No, but you implied that...
Not the government,
that we could let China enrich itself and we can just leave it to become very rich.
This was the idea, though.
Oh, that was the idea.
I've never...
The idea was that if we allowed China to enrich itself, that there would be a growing middle class and they'd embrace some form of democratic change, which they haven't. All we have done...
Well, I never believed that would happen.
All we have done is created a Soviet Union with a bigger bank balance.
Yeah, and
that is the problem. Do you guys realize what was written in Deng Xiaoping's writing?
Yeah. What?
Do you know what was written? That because China has skipped over the primary accumulation of capital, they need to go back, accumulate the capital, and then divide it and spread it into the masses, and again make everything a state-owned entrepreneurship.
So you think they're reversing?
What they are doing, they're just realizing Deng Xiaoping's plan to the letter.
Well, I think the point that Nicholas makes, which I really agree with, which was going to be my second point, which I was going to mention before, is that we have these dictators that we're opposing. And would you rather have dictators be in charge, Putin, Xi, the dear leader in Korea, the dear leaders in Iran, these types of people, or would you rather have, with its, you know, at least
I'd rather have Europeans, and by Europeans I mean Europeans, Americans, Australians, New Zealanders.
The West.
Yeah, the West, for want of a better term. And I think the danger we face is that we are the first generation whose children could grow up in a world where Europe, the West, is not actually in charge. Now, you can say all sorts of things, or you can talk all sorts of rubbish about colonialism and terrible white men and whatever you want to say. But the simple fact of the matter is, everybody in the world, including though, is better off if... everybody in the world is better off if the Europeans, the West, is running it, because we just have a different view of life, and we have a different view of human life.
Well, and
we have a different view of democracy, and we have a different view, which is fraying a bit at the edges, of tolerating dissenting thought.
Well,
this is why what's going on in the universities is so tragic, because a new generation is growing up in the West who somehow think they are scoring lots of points and being very clever by demolishing those concepts which have created the wealth and freedom which they and previous generations have
Well, a lot
enjoyed.
of that is caused by people coming in who don't assimilate.
Yes, well, that's a different immigration.
And we mentioned Schwarzenegger, and the interesting fact about him is he forced himself to stop speaking German,
of course,
so that he would be forced to assimilate. What a great model!
Exactly.
That's what everyone should do.
And he became a governor of a state. So
yeah.
how more assimilated can you be than that?
If you want to assimilate.
Yes.
Now, and if you the whole reason to go to the United States is to assimilate, right? That's what it's there for.
Well, that's what in public, yes.
That is what it encapsulates, the idea of a melting pot and assimilation. Melting pot's such a, I hate that phrase.
I think that they're completely wrong, gentlemen. Entirely. The point is that
you have to say, but wait a second, you have to say on which point we're wrong.
I will not wait a second.
On which point?
The point is what Nick said.
Yeah.
The tolerance of dissent. Assimilation is less important. Once we stress assimilation, we go into the point when we do not tolerate anything different. And what is the most important thing that we have in our culture is tolerance of dissent. And this is the most important. And this is what does not exist in all those cultures, in Chinese tradition even, in Russian tradition. It does not exist.
Okay.
There is no tolerance of dissent. And
well, this is a semantic difference.
Assimilation is good, but
try to assimilate in China if you look like Nicholas. Not going to happen. Or like Anthony. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Or like you or me or any of us. Try to assimilate in China. They're the last people to allow it in mainland China, and they're famous for it. The Russians aren't big on it either, unless you spying for them.
You probably did not hear Putin's speech, in which he said that he's a Jew, he's a Yakut, he's a Buryat, and he mentioned most of the nationalities of Russia because they say they are just as tolerant or even more tolerant than the West.
Did he also mention his allegiance to psychopathy in that list? I wonder.
I doubt it.
Probably left that one out.
But still, I think that assimilation is not as important as letting people assimilate than forcing to assimilate. And there's a great difference between those.
There is.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't force people, but it should be a goal. Because you want to create a cohesion which gets rid of these differences. When people live in ghettos, they prevent themselves from rising in a society. You may rise within that ghetto, like the Italian mafia, but you don't rise in society. But the point is, these
people, a lot of them don't want to assimilate. There's a very good, very obscure case this week. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, or Prince and Princess of Wales as they now are, visited a Muslim centre in London somewhere, and Princess Catherine was wearing a headscarf out of respect, and she went to shake the hand of one of these Muslim people, and he refused to shake her hand because he was a Muslim and wouldn't shake a woman's hand.
Yeah, I saw that.
But the point is, it's a one-way street, this toleration.
Yeah.
She made an effort, and he is living in our country and is not prepared. And so he is bringing in, he is importing, and his ilk are importing, the seeds of our own destruction. Now, people write and say, oh, this terrible man you have on your show. But it is these small gestures which show the true intent of a lot of these people. And we are told in the West, oh, we have to have routes for safe immigration, for safe asylum. And yet these people bypass the Arab countries in the Gulf, are not extending the hand of brotherhood, Muslim brotherhood, to these immigrants. They won't have them. UAE, we can't have immigrants, they won't fit in. Yet again, the West is allowing itself, and this is the problem. Because there's no toleration of dissent. That man, who is essentially an immigrant in the United Kingdom, is not tolerating the fact that the future Queen of England made an effort to show respect by wearing a headscarf, and he could not reciprocate. So he and his ilk actually should be sent back to the little village from which they crawled.
Well, this is
we have to do it, seriously, we have to do it, because this is a small example of the actual problem we all face. You have to tolerate me coming to your country and doing what I want, but I'm not going to tolerate any of your values. And this is the mistake, and this is exactly the point all God makes, this inability of folk to tolerate a different point of view.
Yeah, well, the difference is that, I mean, we all saw that. It was widely available in the media, but the difference is, if you're living there, or if you're visiting. Because I remember the famous story of Jacqueline Kennedy, who refused to curtsy to the Queen, but she was visiting, and it was a different situation. This is somebody living there, and at some point you have to understand, if you live in, for example, Poland, a place like Poland, there are certain customs that you will want to follow. When it's somebody's name day, you want to be polite about it, you know, even though you don't have that in your country, and other things.
But that, for me, that just spoke of something really sinister, actually.
Yeah.
You know, it's already, we have to put up with this in our country.
Well, it's not the first time it's happened.
No, it happens all the time. I'm sorry, it happens. Yeah. People are frightened to say it, but it happens all the time. This is what I'm talking about. It happens all the time with Muslims. There is no
mentality.
What is
this
more
ghettoized
dangerous
mentality
for me? Yeah. Can I just?
I don't like expatriate groups hanging out abroad either.
No, well, that's different.
I find it annoying. It's another kind of ghetto. I don't like it. Yeah, go ahead.
What is more dangerous for me is the one thing that we cannot, we disallow ourselves from speaking things that are not, not well received. No.
We self-edit.
Yeah, we do.
We self-edit. For me, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't know whether the gentleman who didn't shake the hand is that dangerous. We should work on it within our culture. We make our culture so weak. Now, that's the problem.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to get back. We got kind of off this, but the whole topic is which society provides a better framework for advancement, and dictatorships don't do that. I mean, you can have fascism for a little while, and we see through history that it does not work long term. It didn't work for the Romans, doesn't work anywhere else. In fact, Caesar got accused of it, and in this very month was eliminated on the Ides of March, which just happened a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I'd be rather reluctant to equate Caesar with President Xi.
I'm not. But I'm saying even he.
Even he, yes.
That's the point.
Well, power
even
corrupts
he.
and absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
It didn't work even in that atmosphere of ancient Rome.
No.
So why would it work now? When all the information is freely available to show you how dictatorships don't last. When do they ever last?
They don't.
They don't. The only thing that works is some form of republicanism with a small r, and monarchies can work, but only in the sense where they have parliaments. You know.
Generally, yes.
Yeah, they did. Parliaments stopped, you know, the internal civil wars and the constant fighting. In continental Europe, didn't they?
They did.
Up until the First World War.
Until the first, yeah. Well, there we are.
Which was another border dispute.
Another border dispute.
A little border dispute.
Well, we've got to be very careful of border disputes.
Yeah, because they can lead to the kind of conflagration that we see in the moment and destruction in Ukraine. To go back to.
Talking of which, if you talk about border disputes, that's the thing that always was between Russia and China.
Right, thank you. That's where I wanted to go.
Even though it looks like a monolith from some certain points of view, but you still have to be aware that Chinese, and it was published, it was widely publicized over the internet recently, that China still publishes maps with Chinese names of the places instead of Russian names, that there was multiple border incidents between China and Russia, so that there is a lot of Chinese people infiltrating the Russian border and living on the other side, that there is a lot of takeovers.
We're talking about Siberia, which represents 70, I want to go to Anthony on this because I know he knows 70% of Russia, or even a little more.
What you mean is not Siberia, it's Far East and Siberia. Those are the two giant blocks of land.
Okay.
And those are Chinese. Those are basically historically Chinese.
Yeah. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, so the border disputes that have been there, they have been constantly being pushed back and tried. The Russians do not have the forces to maintain that big border in the Siberian and the Far East at all. They know that. They have always been trying to keep the peace with the Chinese. That's why they have had them as allies for as long as they've had. But the China is smelling blood in the water, and they know it. And they see it because they see Putin as a weak individual that cannot lead his own country, let alone lead what they have as an ally or as a commune together with the Chinese. But they've also not only done this with Russia, but they've also started to do this with India. They've tried to do that with the northern parts of India. There have been a lot of skirmishes there too. But the most recent skirmishes that China has had with the borders of Russia have really sparked interest with the West. And the West has also started to notice that China is really bolstering its moves to push into Russia because it's seen as very weak. That's why it's increased a lot of its military power. And people are afraid that if they're going to invade Taiwan, Taiwan is nothing compared if they invade the Siberian area, because the amount of resources that they will get, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's far surpassing.
Yeah, this is a very good point. We're coming down to the end of the show, but let's end with this. That also the amount of investment by China in Siberia, in the extraction of minerals, and also in the oil industry is vast. I wasn't aware of how big it was until I started looking into it this week. And it is substantial. And the Chinese aren't doing that for free, right?
They do nothing
No,
for
they're
free.
not.
Tony,
No.
more?
No, they're not doing that for free. The amount that they have pushed in there in the past 10 years has surpassed the GDP that the United States invests in its military, and that's just in the infrastructure for oil and gas.
Okay,
And that's not including the raw materials.
Thank you, Tony. One last thing. Okay, just quickly, yes or no? Will the meeting between Xi and Putin be fruitful in the sense that it affects negatively for the West the war in Ukraine?
Me?
Tony, go ahead. Yeah. First.
No.
No?
It will not.
It will not be effective.
No.
No, says Nick. Olgerd, care to dissent?
Of course, I'm afraid it might be short-term negative.
Might be short-term negative. I fear that too. I'm with Olgerd on that. So we're even. Even, Stephen. That's a good way to
But
end.
sorry, can I have a very, very final point?
Very briefly.
Because China the point is China's becoming a lot more influential. Don't forget, this week's, was it this week? I lose track of time. Normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran was sort of, not brokered is probably the wrong word, but certainly mediated by the Chinese.
Yeah, that's a very interesting...
Where was the United States? Where was the European Union?
It's an interesting point that was made on another show I was on the other night by a CIA analyst.
Exactly.
So maybe it has some validity.
We have to. China is the threat.
Yeah.
It's a very big threat, and that's what Nick brings up as a heck of a good point, because they have been doing moves not only in the Middle East with countries that have said that they're allies with the United States or European Union, but that's also, they're not even talking about Latin America. They're not talking about Africa. Those are massive, massive markets that China has been investing in heavily.
Well, China and Russia are very heavily invested in Nicaragua.
China is hugely invested in Africa.
Yeah.
And now, final point, now controls 90% of the world's supply of rare earth metals. The things we think we're going to use to build our electric vehicles. I mean, I think electric vehicles are a complete con, but that's beside the point. So, you know, the idea is that we sit in the West and we can worry about transgender lavatories. I'm sorry, the future of our children and their children is at stake, and we've got to wake up.
We'll leave it with that from Nicholas. Thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you very much, Olgerd Ujiembo from in Zambrów. And thank you very much to Anthony McFarland Gonzalez in Washington, D.C. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe when you see this on YouTube or Facebook. Thank you for watching. And may I say, you're looking well. You think they should stay that way?
I think so.
I do.